recordings of these meetings up on our members page of our website. So hold me accountable, guys. I will do that. So firstly, I just want to welcome you all to another amazing advocacy meeting. I hope that you all get a lot out of these meetings. Every time we jump off these calls, Anne, Bron and I often find ourselves thinking, wow, that was so great. We had such good conversations and it really, really helps to inform the work that we do. And so I trust that you're getting just as much out of it as we are. So we're going to do another breakout session later on. So we'll save the introductions for when you guys are in those groups. So I'm going to just get straight into the agenda, which we're going to start off with a little bit of federal election campaign update. I wanted to share with you what our PR agency, Impact Institute, shared with us, as well as how the results have gone for all of the growth electorates around Australia, and then what we're going to do next. I then want to just have a brief discussion around community insights, the importance of what we want to get from your communities, the insights and how you might be able to partner with us on getting this data. Then we're going to go into some breakout rooms, because then we're going to talk about state-based events, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then finally, we'll just touch on some of the really exciting events that are coming up, and the events that aren't just open to the people in this committee, but are open to everybody in your organization who would be relevant to attend. So, but again, we'll discuss that in a sec. So I will now just share my screen and take you through this incredible report that Impact Institute shared with us. As we have indicated previously, we had a really successful campaign since the launch of our report in November up until the actual election. Total coverage that we've achieved is over 1,000. So that's a really great result, with a reach of over 75 million. And that's been across all different channels, from online, print, radio, to newer sort of channels such as podcast and social. So, and the TV that you see there got great reach, and that's been through Bron appearing on, ABC, Channel 7, Sky News. So we had some really, really big placements, which is great. I will share this information with you all so that you can also share it with your teams, because I think it's really exciting to go back to your councils and demonstrate what we've been able to achieve for the investment that you guys have provided. So what did we learn from this campaign? I wanted to share through a little bit of what we've learned, because it's going to help inform future campaigns. So some of the insights that we discussed with Niall is that having research as part of our campaign is always really important for media cut through. So wherever possible, to work with academic partners or someone to bring that new news, because that's what journalists are looking for. They're looking for those numbers that help to cut through and create a bit of an evidence base for their report. Case studies. So thank you everybody for being so supportive. When I picked up the phone, I was like, we really need someone in this area. Again, not only do media like that evidence base and those proof points, they need a community face to have at the beginning of their story to create that personal reference. And that has been what has gained a lot of the coverage for us, has been the ability to have those case studies. So we want to continue to have case studies on hand throughout the year when there are opportunities, when we're doing newsjacking, because we've built up quite a good rapport with the journalists. They now see NGAA as the conduit between them and people in the outer suburbs, and there's going to be so many opportunities that come up. And so the ability for us to be able to just go to you and say, hey, we really need a case study here, that responsiveness will be really appreciated. So then it was an interesting insight that we got back from Impact, which was that journalists report in cities and suburbs. We often talk in LGAs because that's just what we just tend to talk council areas, but actually in news stories, they talk about cities and suburbs. That's just a good pickup for us, and potentially that could be something that you learn and include in your own advocacy activities. And then, so just continued media engagement. So just wanted to share those outcomes with you. But all in all, it has been a really, really positive campaign. Does anyone have any questions on that? No? keep going. Okay, so now we talk about the election results in growth areas. So I'm focusing now on electorates that cover growth areas in all the different states. So up until just recently, actually, there were three. There was one seat that was still yet to be determined in Queensland, which was Longman, and it looked to be at one point that would have been something that Labor gained, but actually it's got swung back to so Liberal has retained it. However, as you can see across the board, there has been a strong swing to Labor, with Labor gaining 3 seats in some of those growth areas, which has been very, very interesting for us to have watched. In New South Wales, interestingly, the Labor gained a seat in Hughes, which was quite a surprise. So Jenny Ware, who was the Liberal MP for Hughes, had just one term, and so that's swung to David Moncrief now. And as you can see there, huge swings to Labor, even in the seats that Liberal have retained. Look at Barrow, which is quite interesting. So that, but again, we're seeing a lot of red, a lot of red. In Victoria, Colwell is still yet to be determined. It's looking like Labor's ahead, though, in the counts that's happening there. Colwell and Monash had some preference counting, which is what has been holding up that. But Monash has been declared as Liberal, so Liberal have retained that. But yeah, again, we can see. And so we really appreciated the feedback that you provided following our previous advocacy meeting. And you can just see some comments here, and this was shared with the Strategic Advisory Committee. So really interesting insights there for us in other states to hear what that felt like on the ground. In South Australia, no major upsets there. Things have stayed as is, and in fact, they've swung, even further into those parties. So, yeah, as this comment says, ALP is now in a comfortable position in the state, and I think that's echoed elsewhere. And then in WA, so Bullwinkle was finally confirmed, and Labor have won that seat, even though there was a swing. They say swing to Liberal because it was notionally Labor, but Bullwinkle have won that seat, which is great. And they've also picked up a new seat in Moore. But then again, you can see there's been quite a few swings to Labor. Interesting. Fremantle was quite a contest, and it was looking like independent Kate Hewlett was going to win that seat, but it has been retained by Labor. But that would be definitely a seat to watch in the next election. Does anyone have any questions on any of those results? It's pretty much what you've been seeing. So then what's ahead for us? So we are now in the process of sending letters and we're in the process of drafting congratulatory letters to not only, ministers but all growth area MPs. One thing that we would like to include in these letters, especially to the growth area MPs, is really making it personalised by including any commitments that they've made to your councils during the election campaign, and any of your funding priorities that still remain unfunded, any of your priority projects. We'd like to include those in the letter just to put them on the agenda for the meetings that we will be setting up. So I'll be getting in touch with each of you to be asking for that information. Yeah, and I'm sure your councils are probably already sending their own letters, but this will be from an NGAA standpoint. We're going to be reaffirming the relationships that we've been building with the teams. But again, we just want to tie it back and create some, consistency between what you're asking for and what we're including in our letters. Pauline.
We've purposely not included the things we didn't get funded in our letters of congratulations, because we don't want to be seen as because there's plenty of opportunity for that to happen, and we just felt like the congratulatory letters are not the place to be doing that, and more of a case of thank you for the commitments, and that we look forward to receiving the scope of works and the timelines and things for the project delivery. Is why are you choosing to, would we be better off as the NGAA doing a higher level thing around what the NGAA priorities are that we continue to ask for, such as a growth areas minister, or the growth areas being identified as for significant investment, and looking at having that investment in line with growth rather than after growth, rather than specifically identifying the projects in our specific areas?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I do appreciate that this is probably a different approach that we've taken previously. Looking at the context of what things are like, and feel free to jump in anytime, Brian, but right now they're talking in a caucus, they're trying to get attention, there's a lot of energy, and I think that, and we were speaking to actually a Hawker Britain person who was like, they're really going to want quick wins. They're wanting to have, shovel ready projects. They're wanting to have places where they can be focusing on to show that they're, they're hitting the ground running. Anything that I think we can do. Oh, sorry, guess go, Bron.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow there, but just to support what you were saying, and obviously the bulk of our letters to growth area MPs will be our priorities, NGAA's priorities, and sort of giving them the story of that, the narrative of that, and how they can fit into helping us achieve that. But also just wanted to reinforce what you all will be doing to say, we work closely with these councils, and this is what we'll be helping them to keep an eye on these commitments. But it's also worth remembering that by sort of August, September, October, they're making decisions for next year's budget. So if there are things that you want a year and a half out, then we need to sort of start getting them in front of people, because really, the way the Expenditure Review Committee works, by the time we all put our budget submissions in, basically the decisions have all been made. So we really need to have our next round of requests in front of people in the lead up to that October period.
Yeah,
and really happy to take the lead from each of you, and maybe, Michelle, it's as simple as, when you're writing to your new or returned MPs, copy us in, and we would certainly take the lead from the language that you're using in your correspondence to your MPs.
I probably didn't emphasize the point strong enough, is that our letter will include our evidence-based policy platforms with, here are some examples of how, by delivering to these policy positioning, will be supporting communities in your electorate. So, but yeah, as Bron said, we'll happily work with you all on what is most comfortable, wanting to make sure that we're supporting the relationships that you have with your federal stakeholders, and not making that not creating any friction there. So stay tuned. So yes, letters, and we'll be setting up meetings. We'll be inviting them to an event that we have in Canberra in November. Date is about to be locked in, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But yes, things are happening. We're also going to be looking at engaging at we talked about this last time, state level engagement. So inviting federal MPs along with any relevant state MPs and agencies in a more state-based sense. We will be discussing this shortly, so that's also to our focus. And then yes, finally, Congress. So this will be an area where we're going to be inviting federal stakeholders, federal MPs. We're still yet to see a confirmed sitting calendar for the year. It's likely that actually Congress will coincide with the sitting week, which would mean we wouldn't really be able to get too much confirmation of an MP attendance, but that's not to say that they can't send an officer or someone in their team to come and attend. So that's our next steps. Any other questions? I think Pauline raised a good question. Any other questions? Feel free to chime in anytime, guys. I know you're all saving your talking bits for the breakout room, so that's also okay. So then finally, one thing that I we are seeking to gain as much insights about our community in a way that we can package up and provide high level snapshots when we go into our meetings with MPs and with ministers. We always like to go into these meetings with a bit of an evidence or research or data. And right now, I think across the board in both political parties are really keen to understand what is it that our community is saying, what do they need, what's challenging them. And the first point of call, I would love to get a feeling from all of you as to your community insights or community survey data. And if you do this annually, is it public? Is the data able to be shared, or is part of the data able to be shared? And does the data include top priorities of the community? Because that will help to give us a bit of a snapshot that we can pull together a story, paint a story about what's happening in our growth areas. So off the bat, I'd love to hear from you. If this isn't in your realm, are you able to get some information on this for us? Just really keen to get your thoughts on this idea.
I'll just make a point there, Michelle, that this is just getting just helping us to get the overview of the variation in terms of community engagement as well, which we feel like we want to emphasise as a key strength of the local government process to underpin an investment framework. So what we're saying basically is that we know that councils do a really good job of engaging with communities, and this is just putting basically trying to get some numbers around that from the growth areas in terms of what they do and what they don't do. And I will we'll talk about this later too, but it links into the next research webinar, which Esky is here. We'll be talking about some of the sort of innovative ways that councils, their council is engaging with the community as well. So these things tie together, but this is just to get that, like, what's the picture of the community insights, who uses what maybe, and numbers and that sort of thing. So, yep, all of those things just give us a helpful, we can then go, oh, in the growth areas, 10,000 people are, engaged every year on an annual basis or something like that. We just go for that, try to gather that killer stat that then emphasises the strength of the community engagement that councils do. Sorry, that was long-winded. Over to you, Michelle.
No. And I've just been getting distracted by the comments and getting distracted. Louise has put in the City of Playford, a link to the City of Playford. Do you want to talk us through, Louise, what you've shared here? Because it's
I'm
really
quite
great.
familiar because I worked with a team prior to my current role. So we used to have a resident satisfaction survey, but since 2020, we turned it into a Play for Community survey. So more how the resident was experiencing the city. We receive normally 1,800 responses annually. We ensure that they come from across all suburbs. And this has been quite meaningful because this has been informing decision making. And of course, the growing pains are coming strongly. And so, just if you want, browse only the last edition, and you will see Curtis Road, that is our biggest growing pain.
And that's great because we can be going, I think it paints a picture of, this is a top priority, and actually X% of the community have been speaking about this, which is great. And I think when we can aggregate some information together and we can say, you know, this is brilliant. So thanks for sharing. And Pauline, sorry, keep going, Luis. I've just interrupted you.
No. And this complements with two other engagement tools. One is the customer center. I mean, all the customer requests, we have a system to manage them. And the data coming from there is very, very meaningful. Because normally when we were requested an insight report, we combine information from different sources, plus, so as everyone does, the specific community engagement in whatever instance we are conducting.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. But we have plenty of feedback if you want about growth in particular.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I can see Pauline shared, and we've got a few people that do market regularly. So that's fantastic. So yes, I will be able to, I'll be able to take this offline and connect with you. Yes, Shanaise.
Sorry, you're like moving on and I'm like, hold on. This is something I work on quite a lot. So for Western Australia, when we do the major review of the strategic community plan, that has to have a community survey element to it as well. So that's every 4 years. So if any of the Western Australian ones are who are part of NGAA have done that recently, you might find there's some interesting information that comes out of that. Market's one of the popular ones, but Catalyze do a lot of the resident, which is slightly different for us, is the resident satisfaction survey. So that's something that we generally do every 2 years. But I was also going to suggest whether it's worth considering. I know we've obviously already got an existing relationship with Profile ID. Their work on the community views, it's an additional platform on the ID platform, is based off a grounding from Ipsos, so it's really well, from a research perspective, it's really well regarded. And I know Armadale have just done theirs with just joined with the community views thing, so it might be worth Louis might be able to give us some insights on whether they found it useful or not, but whether or not it's worth having a conversation with Profile ID as to what it would cost potentially to do NGAA as a whole, like they did with the community profile, the NGAA community profile, just with all that data, whether they could give us a nice little discount to do everybody under the community views. And then there's a national benchmark, because so they've already got an existing wealth of historical data and information that you could compare it to as well.
That's really interesting. The
Sorry, profile. So no, yeah, the Profile ID one is mainly based on livability, if I'm not wrong. In our case, we used to have the resident satisfaction survey conducted by an external consultant. Since 2021, we do it ourselves. We design the questionnaire and we manage it through Qualtrics that maybe your council, some of your councils may be already using to handle customer requests.
Okay.
So but it's very interesting. We are now planning the following one. If there is anything, normally we try to keep it shorter so people don't find it very long to respond. But if there is any particular question we want to ask, we always have feedback that impacts, informs us about what is happening with growth. But if there is anything that's more specifically related to growth that we would like to know, we can explore that too.
Yeah, okay.
That sounds great. And I think this has been really interesting for us to sort of better understand, the difference between community satisfaction with council's performance, as well as community satisfaction with other non-council responsibilities, and then add on these other elements of livability that are measured. So, yeah, that's it's going to be a fascinating piece of work to bring some of those findings together. Thank you.
Yeah.
Be good.
Sorry, all I was thinking is the resident satisfaction stuff generally speaks to how happy are you with the services that they're delivering and or whatever, and that I think gives you less of that. What's your strategic direction? So that's why I was thinking if it's linked to this 10-year strategic community plan, you get a bit more of that big picture stuff as opposed to, I wish that they picked up rubbish more often, or I don't like the change rooms in the leisure centre or whatever. That it gets the resident satisfaction ones tend to get into some of that specific stuff rather than the broad, bigger picture things that would be more NGAA, I think, related.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Fantastic. Well, if anyone has, keep sharing them with me if you've got them, and if you need to go back internally to check it out, then please do. But I'll be in contact, and we'll take that conversation offline.
Perfect.
If I can hand over to you, Bron, I might get you to just explain the state so that I can just assign people into rooms, if that's okay. Sorry, just to
Yep, no, that's fine.
that football.
Yeah. So as you know, as we discussed a bit last meeting, and as you would have known from our strategic plans, the current one and the previous one, there's always been a bit of a push to find a better way to engage with state governments. And so we're looking at that from a couple of perspectives. One is sort of from a secretariat level, and that is looking at becoming more active in the state-based or better connected in the state-based organisation. So in Sydney, it's the Parks, in Perth, it's GAP Group, in Victoria's outer Melbourne councils, and I reckon there's almost a need for perhaps the City of Playford or Mount Barker District Council to start up a South Australian group. So on one hand, we're looking, at that operational level of how we can better engage with those state groups and help each other. But one thing that we've had some feedback from our Strategic Advisory Committee is around just showing a bit of presence in state capitals. So the idea we would have, which will be within our sort of resource level, would be a fairly small round table type meeting, just to sort of a stock take and where to from here for growth areas in each state capital. And, that might take until, almost the rest of the year to organise them. But the concept would be to have a mayor or councillor from our members, invite local federal MPs and perhaps relevant state portfolio holders and senior bureaucrats, just to have as well as those state-based advocacy groups. So it's sort of a joint process of making sure at the local level and, engaging at the state level that growth areas, we're part of that discussion. So it's not in no way designed to step on toes of any state groups. It's designed to increase collaboration with them, but it's also something that our Strategic Advisory Committee are quite keen to pursue, which is that visibility of NGAA in state parliaments. So what we'll be looking for is, Michelle, do you want me to keep going? What we're looking for?
I can.
So,
yeah. No.
Oh, you go. Yeah. So I'll just make a provisos. We are looking at sort of quite small focused gatherings. So what we really want from you, and Michelle will go into more detail, but is some ideas of who you engage with and who would be the most important people to have at that meeting from your state perspective. Yeah, I'll hand over to you, back to you, Michelle.
No, you've covered everything, Bron. So thank you for that. And I've set people up in rooms. I've combined our South Australians with WA, and I'll be jumping into that room so we can have some good chats. But what we're hoping for you to discuss and then report back to the group is, you've just heard what our objective is for these state-based events and what we hope to get out of it. what would give value to you from these events? Like, what would you hope to be achieving? Who from your point of view needs to be invited? Like, who do we need to make sure is on the invite list? Thinking about location and timings that best suit considering things that are coming up, and what have you learned from previous similar events, or yeah, so what inspiration have you got that we can be learning from? I'll put those dot points in the chat so that that's what you're going to talk about, and then we might set aside 10 minutes, 15 minutes to have chats within the group. So enjoy, everyone. I'm going to open the rooms now.
Did you just finish the meeting?
No, I didn't. I've assigned you to a room. Hopefully you're going into room 3. There you go. You're there. Huh? Am I back?
Yep.
We are.
I'm
You are.
back. Okay, good.
The tech works.
For a second, I thought I was in limbo, but okay, I need to share with the whole group. This was really, oh, where are we? We're down here. The moment I was breaking everyone into their rooms, Daniel from Coburn decided to join the meeting, and he literally thought that we had seen him coming and we were running out.
I thought that was the plan, no?
What usually happens when I turn up to events?
Oh. So Bron and Anne, as you guys were in different rooms in the state, how did your conversations go?
Yeah, really interesting. Some clear sort of pathways forward about, what useful purpose such a get together would serve. So some really good ideas there about trying to have the conversations that no one wants to have, but being able to say we're connecting this to national urban policy. And yeah, so got some good sort of ideas of how it could work, could hold it in Parliament, who we'd want to invite, and yeah, so great. Thanks to the Victorians.
Yeah, fantastic. And Anne, what about you?
Well,
And
well, the
then Nicholas
Blues
Welsh.
team. That was a very interesting conversation because Western Sydney also has the parks, and so there is that sort of potential for strengthening numbers. So we do need to work closely with the parks in terms of taking forward the shared priority, and particularly possibly leveraging off the work that was done or the events that were happening before the election, like the Airport City Summit, which gave a commitment to the transport corridor that is a really critical piece in the puzzle for looking at how we connect up the northwest with the southwest and through to the airport, and also a similar idea about sort of emphasising what the local governments can, do to support the best outcomes from the airport as well. So that whole thing of like what we do in our growth areas really does support the implementation of the national urban policy. Trying to think about, we probably need a bit more time to have some conversations about what we take forward to a meeting like that, but we would really like to see it at that highest level. So whether we do actually try to bring together the make it a three-tiered process, because there is that Prime Minister's commitment for the corridor, but to open that up to the state treasury and infrastructure and the decision makers to sort of see that. And we couldn't land on where exactly and timing, but I feel like we need a bit more lead time from what the conversation was. But the location, we thought if they could, in an ideal world, we'd get them to catch public transport to Camden Council and see how long it would take them. But yeah, so we probably need to think a bit more carefully about that, or Wollondilly, in fact. And they would probably get the same. They would get the idea, but anyway. Yeah. So thank you for to the Blues team. I think there's plenty of work to do there, and it would be a really interesting and positive discussion, I think, if we could get the right people around the table, because some utilities, like there's a Western Sydney water infrastructure and there's a plan for that, and I think if we can, in each of these growth areas, there's an opportunity to demonstrate how it can work well. Yeah.
Thanks, Anne. Very similar themes came out of the South Australia WA room, where I think the A team was. I'm just kidding. But some really interesting ideas. Louise made a good point around having academics at the table, maybe even chambers of commerce, having different stakeholders. So, where there's different perspectives around the table, and building strong partnerships, because that was a really big outcome that could come out of these events. The thought that our roundtable's done to death a bit. How do we make it purposeful? How do we make it purpose driven? And how do we make sure that we're framing a solution that that can be discussed productively and not just talking about problems? So some really interesting points for us to take away and frame some ideas that we can then bring back to the members. I've got 2 minutes left in this meeting, and before people start jumping off, I really want to share with people our upcoming events. So if you have any questions based on state events, I'd ask you just to hold them and so that I can share with you some really, really exciting events that you all need to be registering for. If you were to head to ngaa.org.au/events, you would see we have some incredible events coming up. If you can see on the screen, the next event that's happening on May the 29th is a research webinar, Activating Social Connection in Growth Areas. So there's a toolkit that's been developed by Swinburne University. We're also going to be having our lovely Esgy present around the community insights, as Anne had mentioned previously. So the registration is open to everyone, not just NGAA members. So we'll be sharing about it on LinkedIn. So if you see that post, please share with your, with your own connections and your own network. Really would love to see people come along to that and think outside of, your scope in your team, who else in your council would really benefit from this conversation. We've got our members lunch happening in Canberra, June 25th. To align with ALGA's NGAA. So if you know that you've got some if you've got council representation in Canberra during that time, please feel free to share the invite with them. We'd love to have them come for lunch. We'll be discussing post-election outcome and what it means for us and sort of NGAA moving forward. We've also got our Congress coming up at the end of July, which is really exciting. So make sure you check out those details, co-hosted by Coburn and Gosnells. It's going to be a great couple of days. We've got a really exciting site tour plan, which includes the Waste to Energy Recovery Centre and the Australian Marine Complex. Lots of really interesting sites to visit, as well as then a full day on the Thursday around thought leadership in different spaces across future industries, future community and future councils. We've partnered with Hub Group to conduct a series of roundtables. These will be really active participatory roundtables. We'll be discussing various, barriers and planning opportunities that comes with implementing digital infrastructure in our communities, how we can be playing a role as local government, what we need the private sector to understand are the blocks or obstacles or barriers or opportunities within local government, and what we can learn from them, what's happening on their side of the fence. It's going to be a really open and engaging platform, and so we'd really love to see as many people online for that. And if this might not fit in your wheelhouse, but if there's someone else in your team or someone else in your council that you think is actually perfect for these, please forward the invite to them or let me know and I'm happy to forward the invite to them. We really want to make sure that this is a really productive, collaborative discussion with Hub. I'm going to stop. That was a lot of words just at you. Any questions at all? Nope. Stunned you into silence. All right. Well, if there's no further questions, thank you all so much for. Oh, Joel, yes, Joel.
Sorry, Michelle. Just to, I think at the last meeting and the meeting before, there's Bron spoke about the governance review, and it was going to be tabled with the advisory committee. Just wondering if we can put that on the agenda for next time, just to see the update from that discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question, Joel. I love. That's one thing that we didn't talk about today, but yes, we'll definitely be talking about it next time. Thanks, Joel.
Cool.
Well, thanks, everybody. I see people are starting to jump off. Have an amazing rest of your day. And just, we'll see you next time. And if, as always, you know where to find me, so feel free to reach out and call me, email if you've got any ideas or things that pop up. So, keep doing amazing. Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Michelle.
Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you later.